Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, buongiorno, buonasera, dzień dobry, dobry wieczór, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be. It is Saturday, it is July 25th, and a lot of reaction, Jay Slater case, a lot of reaction, of course, to the post that Scoops put up on TikTok about this May 2026 hearing involving Stephen Rocas. Um, and of course, there should be a lot of reaction to it. No idea what happened in that hearing, but what is fascinating to me at this point is that I've only seen one reaction from the accident group at all. Just one reaction. Um, keep having a look at what Lord Lugworm has to say. Keep having a look at what Chris Pennington has to say. I keep having a look at what Peter Pennington, Sword of Justice, yeah, right, has to say. Keep having a look at Laurie, what she has to say. Keep having a look at Thomas Wilson, what he has to say. Keep having a look at Kaz Alice, what she has to say. Keep having a look at Janie, what she has to say on her two YouTube channels. And I can see nothing. Nothing. So, and I understand it. I understand it when a small time bumbling in the closet commentator happens to have said the two fatal words, hot babes. I understand all of the accident group focus must be on that dastardly, absolutely dastardly post or pic or quote. On the idea that possibly the last person that saw Jay, if we discount Ophelia, yeah, the woman who may or may not have seen Jay walking up that road, if we discount her, and Rocky was telling the truth about he slept in the car, then the last person, if Rocky had one eye open as Jay walked up the road, who was the last person to see him, possibly the last person to see him, yeah, in court for something. Something. I mean, it looks to me, from what I read, could be SA. But anyway, no one in the accident group, apart from one person, has had anything to say. The one person I've seen that has had anything to say on it, Zaki Chan 69. Zaki Chan 69, who left a comment on my community post, and Zaki Chan 69 said he got not guilty. He got not guilty. I don't know how Zaki Chan 69 knows that. I replied, what were the charges against Stephen Rockas? No answer yet from Zaki Chan. But just to let you know, Zaki Chan is an absolute nutcase, highly unreliable source of information from the Birmingham area. So, I mean, nothing wrong with the Birmingham area. I'm just saying, I'm hearing the voice in my head, Zaki Chan saying, "Oh yeah, well, my corner, West Bromwich, not guilty is what I hear." I can't do a Brummy accent. Yeah, not what I heard. Not what I heard. I heard he was not guilty. Yeah, something like that. Zaki Chan. Well, it's a shame that only Zaki Chan has said anything. Yeah, not guilty is what I heard. Um, if anyone else can tell me anything else about the Rocky situation, please do. I did hear someone say, or see someone say on a TikTok channel that and I think he is Rocky, has said something on his Insta story. I'm not sure what an Insta story is, but if anyone has Insta and they can see Rocky's story, see what he said. Don't know. Anyway, let's leave the Rocky situation aside. This video is actually a forward, an introduction, if you like, a forward to the mini-series, unbelievably long and interminably waffling series on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the 3 days that cover when Jay Slater's body was found. Now, I have to do a forward to it because I suddenly realized I really do need to explain what has drawn me into analyzing, putting under the microscope the Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And even though I know why I got fired up about this, I don't think I explained it. So I know it's all out of order. I've given you part one, the when of the Saturday, and part two was the how of the Saturday. When did all this communication with the Guardia Civil and the authorities happen? And how did it happen? Chris Pennington and Luggy calling on their phones or making little mini videos for Cipriano Martinez. So we've dealt with the very big question marks over how and when exactly. And of course, my conclusion so far is it's not adding up, so we shouldn't believe anything these people say. But in this introduction, I want to really pin down why I want to look at this, because having gone through a lot of the um, early videos that Chris Pennington made and listened very carefully, word for word, what he said, I now realize in the fullness of time, now we've had all the testimony from the inquest, and now we've had the documentary, we can look back at what Chris Pennington said, and we can pick out specific fabrications and lies, which at the time wasn't obvious, but now is. And then we can ask ourselves, why is this Good Samaritan searcher insisting on lying to us so early doors? Why is that? But right now, you're probably saying, well, give us some examples. How do you know that Chris Pennington is fabricating stuff? He's making stuff up. He's doing a lot worse than that, actually. He's changing what people have said. Like, so he's taken a statement and he's changed it into the narrative he wants to sell you, which is a terrible thing. I mean, making stuff up is one thing. Taking what someone else has said, manipulating it, changing it, reforming it, reinventing it, and then pretending that's what they said is a terrible, terrible thing. Really terrible. So let us go, first of all, and I'll show you what I mean with one clear example. Let us turn to Brad's interview with Isla. Yeah, the famous or infamous interview when some of us got some really bad feelings about what was being said here and why. And I want to turn to the all important, that key moment when Brad is talking about the moment Jay goes off road. Yeah, the moment that Jay goes off road. And let me fumble through my notes here, see if I can find exactly what he says. Yeah, Brad says to Isla what Jay said to him on that 8:30 Monday morning phone call. And Brad says that Jay said, well, I'm not walking down all around that road. Yeah, I'm not walking down all around that road. So there he's talking about the road, the main road. And we know the section of road, it goes down and then it doubles back on itself and goes up. And at that point, let us assume this whole conversation happened as Brad is relating it. I would imagine if Jay's at that point and he's been walking up a hell of a drag, that hill is tough. I told you that. Jay's out of breath. Jay doesn't know where he is. And he sees this road that goes and doubles all the way back up, uphill to his right. So if Jay is determined to keep following this road for whatever reason, I would imagine he'd say, oh, I'm not walking down all around that road. And then Brad goes on, and Brad tries to imagine what he would have done in Jay's position. And Brad says, well, he would have went back up and started walking up round the path again. He wouldn't have gone all the way down there. Now, with this, he wouldn't have gone all the way down there. I think that means down there into that ravine. Yeah. He would have went back up and started walking round the path again. So at this point, Brad has imagined that Jay's gone off road. He's gone down that kind of thicket, cactus, vegetation strewn area. He struggled down there. It's slope. Stones, you can hear stones. Yeah, stones. He's gone off road. But then it's interesting. Brad mentions the word path. Yeah, Brad says he would have went back up and started walking around the path again, meaning he's on the path, that track, and he's gone right, the opposite of the way Chris Pennington says he would have gone. He's gone right against the path of least resistance and gone back up to the road because he realised it ain't going to work. That's what I mean. I'm analysing carefully what Brad said. I'm not walking down all around that road. Right, so that's out. I'm not going down that main road to the right there. It just doubles back on itself and I'm knackered. Yeah. He went back up. Now, he went back up because Jay's gone off road. He's gone, battled through the vegetation. He's on that track and started walking round the path again. Yeah, round that path again. He wouldn't have gone all the way down there. Yeah, he wouldn't have thought of going down the ravine. He would have gone back to that road. Thought better of it. That's what I get from it. But it's interesting Brad mentions the word path. How does Brad know about the path there? Okay, so the interview's on day 12, and it's possible that in those 12 days between Jay disappearing and Brad doing the interview, that Brad would have had a look around there and seen this track or this path. He could have done. But on the other hand, he might not have been down there, and he might have said the word path because he knows Jay was down there. Maybe because he was there. I don't know. But he mentions the word path. And it's interesting that Lucy also mentions the word path, even though Lucy hadn't been up there. They all know about this path or this track. That's what I feel a little bit eerie about. They all talk about this path and this track as if they know it. They really shouldn't know it if they haven't been up there. Yeah. Remember, Lucy was told to sit tight, sit tight, sit tight. So no one should have been up there. Anyway, let's leave that aside. That's not my point here. My point is, Brad tells us is crystal clear. Well, as clear as it can be from Brad's lips. But now we turn to what Chris Pennington said, that Brad said, that Jay said. And I looked at a video by You've Been Clipped, and I'll try to find it again, put the link into this video. And what Chris says in this video, reporting what Brad said about what Jay said in that video call. I know this is Chinese whispers, but Chris said what Brad said, what Jay said was, I'm not walking that windy road. I'm going to come off and take a shortcut. That's a terrible thing to say, Chris. You know it. Peter Pennington knows it. Your whole family knows it. Everyone that ever knows you, Kaz, your best friend, knows it. Luggy knows it. You don't do that. You don't do that, Chris. Brad never said that Jay said, I'm going to come off. I'm going to come off and take a shortcut. Brad never said Jay said a shortcut. No one ever mentioned a shortcut, period. So what are you doing here, Chris, inventing this whole shortcut thing? I get it. It fits your narrative. Your narrative is Jay must have gone down here because he thought it was a shortcut to get to the sea and back home. I get that. But why are you so determined, Chris Pennington, to force your narrative on everyone else? Determined to the point of inventing, absolutely inventing, because Brad's told us what Jay said. Why are you now reinventing what Jay must have said? Answer, logical answer, is because you're stuck. You can't change what Brad said, and what Brad said doesn't fit your narrative, your story, your cock and bull nonsense. So you've had to make something up that Jay never said. And I just wondered, did you then start repeating it? If you start repeating a lie repeated enough times, it kind of becomes a truth. The ever easily manipulated mind of Debbie Duncan, was she taken in by you saying in her ear repeatedly, oh yeah, well Brad said that Jay said he was taking a shortcut, going on a shortcut, Debbie, shortcut, I'm going to come off and take a shortcut. The problem is, Chris, Jay never said that. You said he said that. He never said it. And I'm bothered by this. I'm really fired up about it because anyone, I'll say it one more time, anyone that makes up something that was never said, knowing it was never said, they only have bad intentions. Only. You don't change what someone said because out of the goodness of your heart you want it to sound better. You're only doing it for your own bad intentions. End of, Chris, end of. But it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there at all. Let's turn to what Lucy said, or let's turn to what Chris said, Lucy said about what Jay said. Again, Chinese whispers. Chris Pennington, at 13 minutes and 54 in this video, says he's called Lucy and said he came off road, he's on a dirt track, and he's cut his leg on a cactus. That's what Chris Pennington says Lucy said Jay said. He's called Lucy, he is Jay. Jay's called Lucy, and said he came off road. Did he? Did he say, did Jay literally say to Lucy, I've turned off the road, I've come off the road? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Lucy said, go back to where you came from. But I don't recall Lucy saying, go back to the road. I don't think she knew exactly where he was. Did she know he'd turned off the road? He's called Lucy and said, he said he came off road. And he said to Lucy, this is Chris Pennington saying, Jay said to Lucy, he's on a dirt track. Do you all recall the moment When Lucy's talking about her last phone call, her last words with Jay, and Lucy said, Jay told me he was on a dirt track. I don't. I'd put money on the table now that when Lucy has recalled her conversation, that last conversation with Jay at 8:50 in the morning, she didn't say that Jay said he was on a dirt track. This again is Chris Pennington having to make up bullshit, nonsense, lies, fabrications to fit his narrative. Because the actual words, and this came out. We had the transcripts, we had everything that was stated in the inquest. This came out much later on. Wait for the inquest, wait for the inquest, wait for the inquest. We waited for the inquest, and I don't recall anyone in the inquest saying, oh yeah, Jay told me he was on a dirt track. I don't recall that, because it wasn't said. And Chris says, Jay told Lucy, yeah, he's called Lucy, and he cut his leg on a cactus. Cut his leg on a cactus. Because when Lucy calls emergency services, yeah, she mentions Jay thinks he's going to die up there. But I seem to remember this whole bitten by a cactus, cut on a cactus. That was mentioned a long time after that initial last call. So who is it if in that last call, and Lucy and Jay only have one call together. They're only speaking together, apparently, once, right at the end. Everything else is text messages, you see. So when Chris Pennington says Jay's called Lucy and said, da, 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 there's only one time, Chris, you now know this, when Jay apparently called Lucy. It's the very last 2-minute call when the phone cuts off. And during that call, Jay apparently did not mention anything to do with the dirt track or his leg cut on a cactus. That all came out afterwards. I believe as Lucy had to embellish the horrific position that Jay was in. Keep adding details. Oh, yeah, he's stuck in a ditch. Now he's been cut by a cactus. Keep adding to the scenario of Jay kind of got out of there alive. But during that last call, Chris, I would say you're now making up the contents of that last call, just as you're making up the contents of the interview that we've all heard. But the big question is, why? So my theory is the searchers, whether it be Ivor the liar, liar Ivor, or whether it be Pumpkin, they've had to make so much up, so much of it. Because after the inquest, and after all the digging the sleuths did, it became abundantly clear that their narrative that this must have been an accident doesn't stand up to scrutiny. The more you scrutinize their actual words at the time, the more you find out they just lied all the way through. Now, they got away with it early doors because we didn't know who said what. We had no idea. The only authorities were boots on the ground. Yeah, boots on the ground. Himself, the pumpkin, and Slippers in the basement, in Fishguard, the fairy. These were the only people that had any kind of insight. But as time elapsed, and these two fools started blabbing nonsense, I posted today how, you just Google it. Are Lidar maps of Spain available online? Yes, yes, yes. Here's the site. Da, 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 da. And yet we have this absolute bumbling buffoon from Fishguard saying, oh, yeah, I had to contact my people in Madrid and they were very useful and they let me do this and I had access to their servers and, oh, these special LiDAR maps, they were all so precious in our search. All of this BS, they got away with it early doors because none of us knew any different. But in the fullness of time, now we've had time to dig into what they've actually said and found out what the reality is, it's just shocking. It's shocking how much they have had to lie. And the question is always, why? Why the lies needed? If this were all an accident, no one would have to lie about anything. About anything at all. Chris Pennington said, yeah, LiDAR maps. Luggy got them upon request from Freedom of Information. Yeah, freedom of information. Not exactly, Chris, not exactly. if I can, I want to find a bit about the Lidar maps where Chris really confesses there was nothing to do with finding Jay. Here we go. This is a separate video. I think this one was put out by Viral News. Again, if I can find it, I will put the link in for you. But at 2 minutes, it's Viral News. Chris Tenerife speaks again. If you can find that. Viral News on YouTube. Chris Tenerife speaks again. And at 2 minutes in, Chris says Lidar maps allowed us to remove the vegetation so we could see the most dangerous spots on that landscape so that, here we go, how are you going to complete this sentence based on what Luggy's told us? We'll make a little, little classroom quiz out of this. Complete this sentence based on what Ivor Lovelace has told us about Lidar maps. Quote, Lidar maps allowed us to remove the vegetation so we could see the most dangerous spots on that landscape so that, ... Well, based on what Luggy told us, we're going to write something like, so that we could find Jay's body easier. That's not the end of the sentence. The end of Chris's sentence. Let's go for it here. Lidar maps allowed us to remove the vegetation so we could see the most dangerous spots on that landscape so that I, that's Chris, didn't come to harm, personally, myself. So the whole point of the Lidar maps lie, fiasco and fabrication, as it turned out, was nothing to do with finding Jay's body. It was all to keep little pumpkin poos safe and sound going down the very dangerous ravine with his Deliveroo pack on his back and his, what looks like a black leather winter body warmer on in the 100-degree heat. Yeah, you see, the Lidar maps told Luggy where all the deep vegetation was. And when Luggy's in Fishguard and he can see where the deep vegetation is, he can then tell Chris, careful as you go, on your right-hand side there's very deep vegetation. And Chris can say, yeah, I bloody well know that. I'm here. I can see it. You see, the whole point about Lidar maps is if you're not present in the specific location, you really don't know what is behind or below that vegetation. You obviously can't see it. So, for example, if Chris were not in that ravine and Luggy's in Fishguard, and Luggy wants to know how deep down is the ground level because he can't tell. He can only see an image and he can see vegetation. When we see that ravine, we've all seen it from the road. You're looking down that ravine, you see loads of vegetation. It's true. You really can't tell how far below that vegetation level is the ground. Could be a few inches, could be, a thicket, which is, a foot deep, or it could be a chasm. You can't tell. With a Lidar map, which removes all that vegetation, you actually see, in contour relief form, that ground level. Bingo! What a useful aid for someone who's in Fishguard trying to figure out how deep down that vegetation goes. But for the boots on the ground, it's bloody useless. The boots on the ground can see the vegetation. It's right there. And boots on the ground, if the boots on the ground really wants to, can start walking through that vegetation. Very carefully, because whenever you walk through vegetation, you go carefully. You obviously can't see where the earth might fall away. And that is where some people, I don't, but some like to use their hiking poles. That hiking pole is put ahead of you. If the hiking pole that's placed ahead of you meets firm ground, you can step on it. You don't need a bloody Lidar map to feel what is beneath your feet. Now, it might be useful for someone in Fishguard who's not actually there, but for the actual person there, the Lidar map is of no use whatsoever. So I'm saying even for Chris's safety, it's bloody useless. Chris's safety, I would say, get the frigging Deliveroo pack off your back, yeah? Get that bloody stupid body warmer off, yeah? Stop drinking the night before. Not smoking that pack of Palmers might help you a little bit, yeah? And also, actually, telling the truth might be a good thing to do when you're out looking for a missing person. The guy in Fishguard that's saying, oh, I've contacted the Spanish government. They've given me access to their servers. Look at me, I'm special. I can tell you where the vegetation is. So what? He knows where the vegetation is, and as Cipriano Martin said, if Jay couldn't walk through that vegetation, there's no point us looking through there. Right? So you get your LiDAR maps, you throw them away, and you say, Chris, you're there, you can see where to go forward. If you really think Jay made it all the way down to the V-notch, just walk on down there and see what you find. There is no plan here. All of this nonsense about all the data, the information, the plan. Oh, the plan. Luggy took 5 days to work out the plan. Luggy took 5 seconds to work out the plan. The plan is, Chris, if you can make it off the edge, off the end of that track, and bash through the vegetation and get to the V-notch and beyond, do it. You might find something, but you might not. That's it. There is no other plan. All of this nonsense about the plan, it's bollocks. Adrian, you know it's bollocks. And I guess in one of the videos, I will quote Adrian that shows you he knows it's bollocks, okay? That'll be a nice one for you to wait for. I've been doing my homework. It's been fun, but there's a lot coming your way. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. A 3-day feast of absolute bullshit that has to be revealed and then tossed away. And then we ask the questions, why are these people lying so repeatedly and so often? All right, let's leave it there. Happy Saturday, happy weekend. Hasta luego, hasta la vista, and I will see you next time.